Welcome to Back to the Heart, a podcast for self-discovery, healing, and embracing true freedom. My name is Amanda, and I am your host, and I invite you to join me as we embark on a transformative journey back to your heart, where we get to choose love over fear. A few weeks ago, I released an episode about community and how important community is. If you have not heard that episode, please go back now and take a listen to that. I believe it was episode 7, in talking about how important community has been in my healing journey. And today I am bringing you guys a guest that has been part of my community and has been part of my healing journey, so that she can share what she's doing and share part of her journey, because I feel like her story is very powerful and has helped me in mine and will help you guys today. So welcome, Harsha Sosa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. Harsha, if you want to dive in and tell us a little bit about your journey, and I think that will lead us to where you are today, and then you'll be able to dive into what you're doing, because I know that I see that you guys are doing, you and your husband, has been very powerful. So just let's jump in.
Let's jump in. So my story and how it's brought me to what I'm doing today, and then we'll just sort of pick up on what's moving in that. All right. For me, I guess, like, in terms of what feels relevant to the title of the show, Back to the Heart. I grew up in a family system where I knew I was loved. However, that's not how it always felt. Just with the programming, the pressure that was like the undercurrent of society and my parents. So I was born in India, and when I was about 2.5, my family moved from India to Dubai. And when I was about 9 years old, we moved from Dubai to Canada. So now I'm back in Dubai. It's interesting because my son is about 2.5, so I can, I can see like some of the cycles, and I'll talk about this a little bit later about like breaking cycles and being in a cycle in order to break it. But within that, I, I really felt the love that my parents had for me, but it wasn't really shown always. There was just so much else that always took priority, that the love that I was sensing was like, it's like I always felt like there was something beyond what the humans in my life were showing me. And I kind of realized this is something that I had a connection to throughout my life, where there were so many changes and so many things to adapt to. And that the love that I was always looking for, it wasn't actually available in the places where I thought that should have been. And so I grew up, with a lot of belief systems that were actually counter to love and feeling worthy of it, and feeling like I really deserved the love in the way that it I've it's like written, or like that you hear about, or that I had like imagined or fantasized of even. And it took me being about 20 something years old. I had never been in a relationship. Um, like, my parents were quite strict. We were liberal on some sense, but in a lot of ways, they were also very conservative. And so my focus throughout my whole like childhood and adolescence was very like education heavy, like get a good education, get a good job, do the right thing. It's like everything had to be earned. And that I would then get the approval by following all of these like steps. And so when it came to that like natural time of life where things were just opening up for me, I was no longer under my parents' like rule anymore, and I was able to explore my own path. One, I just started realizing that everything that I had thought about myself and believed about myself and just thought in general was not actually me. It was everything that was passed down through the lineage, my parents, the programming, society, like everything external to me. And so I had a basically a wake up call because this relationship that you see now actually with my partner was actually like the breaking point. I was he was like the perfect mirror to all the parts of me that still wasn't in alignment with living from the heart and full of love. And so we actually had a lot of breakdowns. And looking back at it, it was perfect because, sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times, we as humans, in order to go through a big transformation, something traumatic needs to happen to crack through our sense of ourselves, the sense of the world, and everything. And that's what happened. So when that happened for me in the relationship, it was like I had this huge, like, oh my gosh, like, what is life? What am I doing here? Who am I? What do I believe in? Like, everything got flipped upside down. And the beautiful thing is, like I was sharing a little bit earlier, is that love that I knew deep down that did exist from wherever that was, it like emerged through this huge breakdown that I was moving through. It's like my spiritual self, like I like to say now, had an opportunity to come online as a result of what at the time was a relational breakdown, but really that was showing up in all areas of my life. It's just the relationship was like the main area that I was really feeling it at the time. But truth be told, my health wasn't optimal, far from it. My finances, my everything in life just wasn't really fitting the way I thought everything I was doing up till that point was making me fit into life the way I wanted to fit into it. And so that breakdown was the wake up call that I needed to crack my sense of self and really come face to face with these beliefs that I didn't know I was holding inside of me, that I'm not worthy of love, that I don't deserve to be treated well, um, that love hurts, that I don't get what I want. So all of these things I didn't realize were operating under the current of my sense of self. And it was, I guess, I was able to, and not just me, when I speak by myself, I see a lot of it happens to a lot of people. Like I was just like a lot of other people who live life in this way, like we can just get by, we can override, and we can somehow fill these huge gaps in our belief systems that we have with things that are external to us and not realize it until something big like sort of like brings it all up and has us like not able to look at anything else but that. And so when this happened, one, I was like, okay, pause everything. And I also started for the first time actually speaking to this unseen force, which my whole life I was learning about through uh, the belief systems. My parents had the beautiful thing is like I was exposed to all different religions and a lot of spirituality from a young age. It was all like intellectual and from the head up, not really an embodiment of it, just a lot of concepts, but it did do something because at a young age I was really like soaking up all of that, but I didn't have any place to connect with it really. And so when this opening happened for me, it's like this opportunity to really build from ground zero this connection to that thing that had always been with me my whole life, um like in reality. And so I started for the first time talking to this unseen force, like I thought I believed in all of this. I was calling it God, you call it source, creator, whatever higher power you believe in. I'm like, what the hell? Like, I thought we were on good terms. I thought I was believing you. I thought I was doing the right thing this whole time. But I'm like here right now, and this really sucks. And I made a deal at that moment with this unseen force. I said, I really want to believe in all of this again. Like, I really want to believe in the goodness and the love and the light, but I haven't really experienced that truly in my life. Like, I've been reaching for it and searching for it, but it actually hasn't been an experience that I've had. But I really believe that it exists, and I want to give it another shot. So here's the deal. I'm willing to recommit to this, the truth, but I really want you to put something in front of me that's going to really cut the BS. When I say BS, it's like bullshit, but also belief system. Like, I don't want the truth from what people are telling me, because people have been telling me apparently the truth my whole life, but it's felt like lies. I want like direct contact with you, source. Like, I want to know it like through me and me, and like undeniably. I was reading a book at the time called Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And in this book, if you or any of your viewers have read it, he lived at a time in India when like really people had these powers, like crazy powers, psychic powers, paranormal powers, and it was a normal thing. And yet, as I was reading that, there was no part of me saying that like that's not true. I'm like, that I know that's a thing. I know that that's possible. Right. And so I'm like, I want to
Or you don't give
know
attention to
that
it, but
reality for real, and not from what people are telling me through books and this and that. And they say, be careful what you wish for, because that's what happened. My journey just took a whole different form. I then, in that moment, really began what I call my empowerment journey, where it really came to me, the very thing that I was asking for. I started to see myself having a thought about something, and then the next day, the thing that I was thinking about would show up in some form, or the perfect teacher would show up who was teaching the very thing that I had been questioning about, and like filling the gaps in my thirst and seeking of knowledge, or the perfect book would show up, or just these like circumstances where I would go, how is this happening right now? Is this real life? And it actually helped me to start believe in something, that there is a force, something that I had always been connected to my whole life, and I knew it on some level, but that level had like day by day just been getting covered by this thing that I call ego life, which is very attached to the forms and the 3D and the density, and wasn't really being given the space or allowed the space to fully experience this like beyond level of light and love that truly exists. And so this is when I was like, wow, this, like, if I'm having this experience and this is what I've been through, I know already that I'm here and I'm meant to help others in some way, shape, or form. I always thought I was going to be a doctor, because I felt like doctors really do that. They really help people feel better, and they really like heal. But again, that was a limited idea of even what I thought my purpose was. And so when I woke up to, oh, this is the true healing, this is really medicine, understanding that there is a power, I've been calling it force, but it's like a power that exists, that all of humanity for all of time has been talking about, but that in the talking about it, we've been losing touch with what it actually is. And so now my mission and my purpose is to really bring myself, one, closer and closer and more deeply connected and embodied in the connection with this power, which truly is all love. It's like the purest form of love, but it's beyond anything that we as humans can actually, it's not human love. It's not like what we give one another. It's something beyond all of that. And so I took it on, thanks to, being blessed with the opportunity to connect with it myself in the way that I have, that somehow, some way, whether it's just through my being, my transmission, a conversation that I have, that I can bring that power back to the people in its true form. Like, not because of what I believe in, but because what it actually is and what is actually possible when we as humans connect with it directly. And so I have no idea what that like looked like at the time, but I've been evolving and evolving, continuing to evolve, because that's what this love does. And us as humans, this is what we do, is we're just always growing and transforming. And so at the current, right now, what that looks like is my husband and I, we've been through such a healing journey since our original breakdown. We've grown so much. We now understand a lot of things about ourselves. And so we have started our own community. The basis of the community is the modality of breathwork, where we meet once a week with our community and move through breathwork together, honoring that idea that connection is a direct link that every human has to whatever they call that higher power. I'm just going to call it love for the sake of our conversation here, but some people call it God, some people call it source, some people call it creator, and that's something that every human being has a direct link to, that no other human really has any say about or anything to do with, but that in community, we get to share in the experience of it, and we get to play with our language in knowing that we're not alone in our experience of it, but that thanks to breath work, which is an amazing empowerment tool, we get to have that experience of it directly. So it's like the best of both worlds, and that's what we're now creating. And then within that as well, I'm really, really passionate, especially working with women, because I've just my own, with what I learned about myself and what I see in my culture and what I see in society at large, is I really feel that it's a big breakdown point that has existed, is women knowing empowerment and knowing our power from like a really deep seated place of like not needing to prove anything, not needing to do anything, but just like knowing that the power that is, and then even in our power to create life as mothers, whether we choose to have a child or we create anything in the world, just like really tapping into what that means and where that comes from is also a mission of mine. And then, the branches of this tree kind of go off in many different directions, but that's really the trunk of it all. So yeah, that's kind of the story and where we're at now.
Yeah, that's so incredibly beautiful. There's so many nuggets of information in there, and I can really relate when you're talking about the little things connecting, and some people might call them synchronicities or joy moments or whatever it is. These just connections that happen. And you said, is this life real? I think my journey had some of those same realizations. I was like, am I living in a TV show? And then I was like, yeah, I am living in a TV show, and it's mine. And
Yeah.
I am that co-creator. Once I got back to my heart and was able to see that I am the
Yeah.
co-creator and I am creating this TV show. And if I am putting those things out there in the universe, that I do have the capacity and the opportunity to bring those things in. So it is
Yes.
incredibly beautiful, because once those things start happening, then you're in that flow and in that energy, and it attracts more of that. So it just kind of keeps going. So I think that's incredibly beautiful. And so many things. You're talking about a relationship and being a mirror. I want to touch on that and the breath work.
Hmm.
So many great things. Um, I think the relationship is a part I want to dig into because for me, I feel like relationships have been those areas that we have maybe some sort of expectation in our mind of what it's supposed to be. And those are completely just made up from, what maybe just some sort of fantasy from Disney movies, Hallmark movies, the people around us, which is not usually very good. I mean, if I were thinking of people that I see and just again visually on the outside, people that I know that have a quote unquote good relationship or a healthy relationship, and it's two or three, like that was my story before I started the healing journey and getting in a community of people with that same like healing energy. So it was like you have nothing to look up to aspire to be besides what we see like in the public view, and that's not always the truth, as we know. So
Mm.
that is really interesting to share your story about how that mirror came up because I've experienced a lot of that myself. And um, we attract where we are, and those parts of us come back up. So just tell us a little bit more about that experience and how you guys have mirrored each other and healed together.
Yeah, beautiful question. I always say that when we're in relationship, we're talking like intimate partnership at this point, right? It but really can be translated to even like really deep friendships and even family. But right now for this conversation, we'll talk like intimate partnership, which really is like the closest mirror, I'd say, because we're connecting even at the level of the sex, and that's the true creative life force energy. And what I always say is that when we're in a partnership, the more aligned our light is and our gifts, let's say, and the positive aspects of us, the more the perfect match we feel that is, equally perfectly matched is our shadows and our darkness and the parts of us that are still works in progress. Like they're actually perfectly matched for one another. And so I see it, I went through it where, there's that honeymoon phase where things are all great. You're just seeing the light, and the person's reflecting the light in you, and you're seeing that it's great. But then, like day turns to night at some point, the shadows come out. And what we don't realize is our shadows are perfectly matched for one another. Now, I don't speak the language of the attachment styles, but they even say if you're in that world, like the attachment styles end up being perfectly matched. Like the avoidant ends up being perfectly like usually the avoidant and the insecure are the two that match up. It's like, how does that happen? It's like, oh, of course, you're like the two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly for one another, not just on the things that are not working out, but also for the things that are. And like you said, we don't necessarily get in our lifetime role models for how to be with the shadows, not just our own, for sure, not our own, but also then when it's looking at us through the mirror that is another, but in a way that we don't identify as this is us, but it's like the reflection of us. I'm thinking of a puzzle piece or two puzzle pieces. When they fit perfectly, they're actually opposites of one another, right? Like the part that sticks out and the part that goes in, they match up, and that's like the perfect fit. So when you see it in your partner, it's easy to forget that what you're seeing is actually the perfect match to what is going on within you. But because it's a different piece, it's like it shows up differently, that we don't identify it as actually being something that's within us. And so that's where breakdown happens. It's because of the fantasy of relationship that gets portrayed. oh, you complete me, like, all the things that I need, you have, and all the things that you need, I have. It's like, it's great when we're looking at that, but also, what about like on the darker side of things, on the shadows? And I think with relationship, it's really just been about knowing about that, knowing that that exists. And it always, always comes down to, now I truly know this, that the primary relationship that we have that is more important than any other relationship is the relationship to this unseen power, the higher power source. Again, everyone has their own word for it, because in that, we are willing to look at ourselves and use the relationship as a way to look at deeper parts of ourselves that we cannot see, right? If we didn't have mirrors to look to see what we look like, we wouldn't know what we look like. In the mirror, we see ourselves, but when we're looking at the deeper aspects of our psyche, our belief systems, there's no physical mirror for that. That shows up through relationship. That's the mirror for that. And so, are we willing to look at that as an opportunity to see ourselves and then go into this primary connection? And it's the heart, truly. Like, for me, my experience of connecting with source, God, higher power, it's really just cracked my heart open over and over again. And for me personally, I actually feel it primarily as sensations in my heart all the time. And I know that it's being worked on. I know my soul, the higher power that I believe in, is just calling me into deeper conversations with myself and that, to work out where I feel like, oh, there's a breakdown. Like, this person is not showing up in the way that I had thought that they would. And I'm getting a feeling in this relationship that I shouldn't be feeling, right? Because like you said, we get this fantasy idea of what it should feel like, and that's not there. Um, and so it's really about coming back and really being willing to put the ego down and say, okay, this is actually about me, myself, and I. And this person is here in front of me, who I'm in deep relationship with, to show me more clearly where I stand with me, myself, and I. And we get the opportunity to make choices as a result of that awareness. There's always a choice to make. There's always a choice to make. And that choice, we give our power away when we think that it's like one that we don't have a choice, that we're stuck in something that don't want to be in. But really, we always have a choice one way or another. Even if it's a small one, we have a choice. And this is where empowerment comes in. And the very basic choice that we get to make is, am I willing to see how this is actually very much about me and not about that other person? And we take our power back when we do that. And that brings power to the relationship, whether it's the relationship lasts another day or it's this relationship has ended and we are now going our separate ways. There's still power in knowing that you made a choice that's coming from you, yourself, and your heart, connected to a higher power, and that now this person is like the mirror to it. So I hope that's making sense, but that's what was coming up for me with the topic of relationships as you're speaking.
Definitely. Yeah, I think, like you were saying, whenever we look in the mirror and see ourselves, we are seeing ourselves from obviously our own perception. So having another person to see us, they're going to see us in a different way. There's no possible way to see yourself the way someone else sees you. It's just not possible. So to be able to have someone that is close to us, like you said, whether that is an intimate partner like we're discussing, or someone else, a friend or family member, somebody else that's close, that you can open yourself up to being able to receive their perception of what's happening and be able to learn from that and look within and be able to really crack those spaces open and be able to receive that from someone else from a completely different space. For
Yeah.
sure. And that gets back, as you were saying about our intuition and listening. I just saw something recently. It was talking about how we have like a brain inside of our hearts that's different than like our
Mm,
head brain that has been looked over for so many years. And that is that inner knowing that for so many of us, we've forgotten that it's there. And things have happened in our life and our experience that we don't know how to trust that anymore. And that's
yeah.
really, as women, as you stated with that empowerment, that is our superpower. And that's even stronger for us than even men. But we've been shunned to use it. We've been afraid, guilt or shame, or just all of the confusion. So
Yeah.
let's kind of transition over to, some of the things that you're teaching to the women to be able to understand what is that brain in my heart saying to me, and to be able to recognize when it is that brain and not the all the shit I've been through brain.
Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, okay. So many layers to this one. Okay. Yes. Because one, when we're in the heart brain only thinks in terms of love. Now, like I had mentioned before, right? Like love, the way it's been defined to us by other human beings isn't the love that is the true love of the heart. It really comes down to like having a sense of connection to yourself and being so secure with the love that you have for yourself. That's the primary number one. Until we come to know that, which fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, it actually takes a very healthy dose of isolation to get to. Because it's in this world that's hyper connected where there's not a moment that we can't like be in touch with someone even halfway around the world. Can you really just be completely with yourself? Like like if you were to be on stranded on an island somewhere, can you still feel an overwhelming sense of love? Like that's what I'm talking about. It's not the physical island, but it's like this mental isolation that you have to be willing to be in, like feeling like you're completely alone and there's no one that loves you and that there's nobody that cares for you in any form, family, friend, relation, intimate partner. Can you be in that emptiness and still get in touch with the true love that actually exists? And that's really coming into your own heart. What tends to happen is we on some level we're feeding off the energy of other people's hearts, thinking that is how we stay alive in the essence of love, and that there's always a little attachment to our love with others. So before I even start answering that question, it really comes down to, are you really secure with yourself? Like in the to the degree that if your heart was saying something to you that meant possibly losing a relationship with another person, are you willing to listen and honor what your heart is saying and risk the loss of that relationship? But here's the thing though, right? It's never actually a loss. There's no actual loss. It feels like it when we haven't built that sense of security and confidence that like there's no loss in my life at all. I'm whole and complete. And even if there's a person who I'm currently say talking to and in connection with physically a certain amount of times in a day or a week, and moving forward in the future we will not have that, the love in my heart is not lost to that person. Like it's not like because they're no longer in connection with me, that I don't love them or that there isn't love there. That only happens if what we live in isn't the true heart love that what I was talking about earlier is like beyond human. It's like God love, it's like it's there no matter what. It's there in the spaces, within the spaces, whether there's a person or an animal or being or not, that just is there. So coming to get to that level within ourselves, and when we when we look at like the message that I share to women especially is one, can you be that? Like can you be a mountain of your own, fully self-sustained, knowing that you're connected to something bigger than you? And that from that place, you know yourself and you know your heart and the way it speaks to you and what you hear is very unique to yourself, and that life is then an experimentation, a play, because we don't know the answers to things. We're here to experience. So we may make a decision, we may make a choice that will lead to a loss, but it's not a loss. It's there's like an evolution in this. There's another aspect of myself that I'm learning to exercise here. And because I trust this heart, I trust that the power that is within me is the same power that is within every other human being, whether they realize it or not, and that no matter what, there is no loss whatsoever. And that now I'm here to learn some things in this lifetime. I'm here through relationship with other women, with other men, to learn different aspects of myself about communication, what I stand for, what I don't stand for, how I deserve to be treated or how I don't deserve to be treated. And these are all parts of how we play this game of life. And our primary guide is what's going on here. It's not because of what anyone else is doing. So I just want to start with that. And then I want to see, like, do you have more questions to go deeper into this and maybe, yeah, where we could go with this?
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. So maybe for a woman out there that's listening that is unsure of, is that my heart space or is that my mind telling me to do this or not do this or be this or not be this way? What is, maybe that's where, we transition to the breath work of getting back into yourself and quieting this mind so you can have that feeling.
Yeah, yeah. There's breathwork is a great tool, one, to like cut through, because the mind tends to be very, um, okay, actually, as I'm about to speak into it, it's like showing me the truth of it. The mind can show up in one of two ways. One, either it's a lot of like unclarity, where it's like this way, that way, I don't know, like what is it, like a lot of just like looping of not sure, and it's going one way, one direction, 1 second, another direction. So it could be like that. Or the mind can be like, this is it, and that is it, and that's all there is, and there's nothing else. And like it cuts off every other option. So either it's all options are open or all options are closed except for one. This is my experience of how I know that it's my mind, because it's very definitive or it's seeking definition. So it's like the two flip sides of the same coin, the way I see it. So one is if you're finding yourself in that way of being where either it's like, okay, I know this is what it is and that's it, and you're not really willing to change, it's very likely that you're living from the mind and it's based on your past or the ego's sense of self versus your true heart's knowing of itself. When it's the heart, um, the other way to that is there's just lots of questions in your mind, but you're not really feeling like there's an answer to any of the questions you're asking. That's another way to know that you're most likely operating from a place of the mind. And um, they look very different, but to me, they're actually, like I said, two sides of the very same coin. They just show up differently. How I know that it's the heart. How do we know that it's the heart? One, it's almost like the perfect pairing to what I just shared, but there's this sense of like freedom in it, freedom for yourself and freedom to whatever you are is the object of your attention and that given moment. So it sounds something like, I know this to be true about myself, but I know that this is just right now. Like the heart's consciousness isn't in the past or the future. It's very much here and now. And it's open to limitless possibilities in the future, but it's not unclear or anxious about it in any way. Just because the future may look different and there may be more questions and more curiosities from your mind, your heart can still bring an answer to that and settle you into the answer to the question that your mind is asking. So that's the ways that I know it's the heart. It's clear, but it's not limited in its clarity. It's not like, oh, I know, and that's the only way. It's, oh, I know. And if it's not this, I know that I'll be shown why it's not this, and I will trust that too. And there's a sense of freedom for all in that way of being, because the heart and the love truly is free. It just wants freedom, and it wants us to feel what it feels like to be free in our relationships, especially. Because, like I said, our whole model of relationship is more often than not based in attachment rather than true connection. And connection brings freedom. It brings a sense of like, like there's just nothing but love here for me, and there's nothing but love here for you. Whatever that looks like does not even matter to me. I know there's love here. And right now, maybe my heart is saying, like, I need some space. Like, I just need some space from you right now. But it's not because I don't love you. It's not because I don't care for you. I just need space. And will that be forever? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. And if it's not, I'm willing to like continue on with the moments of life and the experiences that come that show me that. And if it is, then again, I don't know that for sure. I'm living life moment by moment by what's happening here and now, here and now, here and now. And that can be really difficult for the mind to grasp, because it's like, well, what about that? What about this? What about that? What about this? And it's like, okay, yes, what about that? But the heart's still going to come with the same answer of, do you feel love about it? Do you feel settled? Do you feel trusting of what's happening? And if that's a no, then it's like you haven't really dropped into the heart fully yet. It's still being avoided. It's like the mind just wants what it wants, but it's not letting the heart be a part of that equation. So that's how I would say you would know the difference.
I love that. Um, and talking about breath work, would you just go into a little bit, if somebody hasn't even heard about breath work, what it is, how it works, and why it can be a powerful tool in someone's healing journey?
So breath work is an intentional utilization of the breath to alter your perception and state, very basically put. Breath work takes many different forms. You can do meditative breath work. The way I learned breath work originally when I was really young was just actually as a form of meditation, which is while meditating, to meditate, all you have to do is focus on your breath and feel the air moving in through your nose and out through your nose. And it was taught to me like that's meditation, but really it was a breath work. That's one layer, but we can take that up to different patterns of breath, intensities, different purposes, different intentions. And it's all about using the breath and the physiological impact that has on us, the spiritual impact that it has on us, the emotional impact that it has on us. On every level, breath work impacts us in a very, very positive way and allows us to optimize ourselves as human beings. Like the first area of optimization for us as humans is the breath. Second to that then comes our consumption, like our food and how we eat. That's like the second level of optimization. You have those two down, you're truly like operating at the very basic level as like an optimal human being. Then now in our world, we have so many extra things we can add that really enhance that for ourselves. So for someone who's never tried breath work or never heard of breath work or is very new, one, it's a whole universe of and of itself. It's everything it means to be human. But truly, the practice of breath work essentially is the intentional use of your breath to alter your state and your perception. And oftentimes it really brings you from the limited kind of like narrow like focus that we tend to operate in into something that's a little bit more wider and more all encompassing, and something that has us even settle into our bodies and trust the experience we're having from the neck down. So yeah, that's breath work.
That's great. And will you share with us about, I guess, what you're doing within your community? And you mentioned breath work. You guys are doing breath work on a weekly basis, and kind of what that
Yeah.
looks like within the community.
Just before I answer that, I'm curious, what has been your experience of breath work? Like how,
Yeah. No, that's a great question. So for me with breath work, I can tell a complete difference if I don't have that specific intention. If it's just the breathing, which for me, even whenever I do the breath work without intention, it's still physically helping my body kind of recharge and regenerate and get into a meditative state. But whenever I do have a specific intention with breath work, I have been able to expand and see things from a completely different perspective. Just as similar experience that I've had with plant medicine as well. So it's like gives you that same type of experience, but just you. And that's some of the things that I've realized and experienced from some of my plant medicine journeys is that, well, sometimes they are very helpful. Sometimes I didn't need that. It was just me, and it's getting into that space. So the
mm,
breath work is such a unique experience to be able to bring myself back to that heart space and be able to get in touch and um, I guess just open up a whole different viewpoint. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I love that. Open up a whole different viewpoint is what it does. Yeah. It allows us to see ourselves a little differently. Um, yeah, it's
Yeah.
so deep. There's so much within the topic of breath work, and yeah, anyone who goes to search it is going to find so many different things.
Yeah.
So it's like one of those like find a trusted source like into this whole realm, but
But
it's
more
really
in
just
like
you
a
and yourself. Mm,
Yeah, but more in like a general sense, it is a patterned rhythmic breathing type cycle that you're going through where our normal selves, we're used to just breathing freely without thinking about it. And this is the one time where we are actually using our brain, controlling our body, and making a decision of here's how I choose to breathe, not just how I naturally breathe. So that's where it takes over that control of like, actually, I am making a decision here of how and when I
yes.
want to breathe. So that is what takes you into kind of a different, your mind body coherence, I guess, of understanding that I have that complete control. And that is that space where that connection that you're talking about, that love within, is very unique because any other relationship outside of us is always going to be conditional because
Mm,
it's another separate person. So there is that condition of that separation where that connection, that love within, there is that no separation there. It is all within one. So that's how I've been able to use the breath work to get into that space, to feel that energy and that love connection within.
I love that. I love the way you put it. That's exactly it. That's exactly it. It's like we're whether we think about it or not, breathing is happening naturally. That's like our life force. Like you said, we have this power to actually focus our awareness on our breath and choose how we're breathing. And then when we put work into that, which is the steady continuation of any specific pattern, that's breath work. And like you just shared it, that's exactly it. It gets you back in touch with everything that it means to truly be you. And when you add an intention you literally have a transformation. Like you start from point A and you get to a point B, and it's a state shift, and it's not reliant on anything or anyone outside of you. It's just what you've got within you and accessible to you as a human being. And anyone and everyone who's alive today can use it. It's super empowering, super empowering.
Well, and so many times these emotions get trapped inside of our bodies, and we're not fully releasing these things out of our bodies. And that breath is definitely a way to do that. And you think about anytime, people are in a stressful situation or panic or whatever it is, what do they tell you to do? It's always about your breath. That brings you back. That is the one place where we have that power as humans. That is our breath. How life is taken with a stoppage of our breath. That is the thing that we have to be able to do. So to be able to control that and have that kind of power within ourselves is truly divine.
Yeah, truly divine. Exactly. Truly divine. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so how would our listeners find out more about you, and what would you like to share with them if they're looking to make some changes in their lives? What would your advice be to them?
How they can find us, www.revive-yourlife.com, or on Instagram, you're at revive_your life. That's the breathwork community business that my husband and I are co-building together. We use breathwork a lot. It's really just kind of like what with the plant medicine. It's already there. We just are facilitators and conduits for the work to reach those who are looking for a safe place to access it and to try it for themselves. Because really, you don't need anybody else to do breath work. But like you said, a lot of us are moving through life not knowing that we have all of these emotions buried within ourselves that are trapped, and that the access to release them is through a practice like breath work, and that it can feel unsafe to access those emotions on our own because they're buried and hidden for a reason. Because that's a whole deeper topic of its own, but there's parts of us that don't want to feel that, and it doesn't feel like a safe place to be. And so a community like Revive Your Life is here to help create that safe space where you can have an experience of breath work. And the premise is that we are offering a space of empowerment where you get to come and access the power of your breath within a community of people who are all moving through the same experience. Everyone has their own unique experience, but the breathwork experience is a collective shared one. And that over time, what's happening is where these energies, these emotions are stuck and hidden, are being liberated out, so that from a subconscious level, you're accessing freedom. Because if it's in the body, if it's stuck in the body, it means it's stuck in your subconscious. And that means you're not fully open to the limitless possibilities of life. And as you let those emotions out and they're no longer held in, your subconscious mind gets freed up. And so you're actually more open in your perception of life, and you're able to attract and magnetize more of the things that are in alignment with what you want to believe versus what you think you believe. And so our community is really just this, to a place where people can come and experience breathwork for themselves in all different forms of it. We don't just have, it's not like just one style of breathwork. We have breathwork for relaxation, breathwork for limiting beliefs, breathwork for clearing through blocks, breathwork for energy. It's just like we're offering a space where people can experience the full range, because every body is different and not everybody even if we were all breathing this very same way in this very same pattern, the experience that each one of us would be having within ourselves is very unique to us. And so by offering a variety of styles, we're allowing everyone to access a range of experience within themselves, and different emotions come up with different breath styles and things like that. We actually have a couple of free resources right now that if anyone that's listening wants to just kind of try it and kind of get a kind of a gentle introduction to breathwork, there's a breathwork audio guide that I can share with you that you can share with your listeners. It's breathwork for relaxation. So it's very very gentle. It's not a high intensity breath. It's really meant to help your body relax through a guided audio. There's so many things. The second question you asked is what somebody could do to get started if they want to make a change. Um, One, it's understanding what is that change that you want to make very clearly, like what needs to change, and then why, like what's the cost of not changing it? Like just getting the awareness is the first step. I truly know that one, awareness isn't the end of the game. Awareness is medicine in and of itself. Like when you have become aware of something that you were once unaware of, it's like medicine to the body. Like, oh, I know something I didn't know. It's like learning, right? We grow as we learn, and there's like a euphoria in that, and that's healing. But also, then it's what do you do with your awareness? And we kind of try to do it backwards. We try to do the things thinking the awareness will come, but we need to have the awareness of it, and then we will naturally find the right doing to follow through with that. And there's usually more than one thing we could do. So it could be something like journaling. For me, that was really helpful when I started out, to put pen to paper and write. And it was very structured at first, like writing the things that I was grateful for. Every day I would journal, and I would just start my first half of the page would just be I'm grateful for, I appreciate this, I'm grateful, like that's it. And every day that's what I wrote. And also within that journal, I would write, what am I declaring? Like, who am I becoming? What type of person am I becoming? And I would write that down. And there's something about journaling I realized, for me, why I find it so powerful is um, when we're operating in like cluster mind, it's like full of so many thoughts from our past, from other people. Like it's like really clouded in there. To be able to like find that one thread of a thought that's clear, and it's actually like you're gonna make it something real. It's truly manifestation, because you're taking something from the unseen realm and actually making it seen, and it's through your own writing that you're then going to see it. Like it literally, you're manifesting through your writing. It's like channeling, because you could write anything, right? You could just write ha ha ha, like, or just nothing. Like you could, it's you are creating that, it's your choice. So there's an empowerment in filtering through all of the stuff that exists in your mind and pulling down what is really worth writing down. So for me, one, the gratitude was very important, because through all of that, that helped me create a funnel. Because then with everything that was going on in my mind, when I focused on what am I grateful for, it's like I created this like this funnel for higher vibrational thoughts being channeled down onto the paper, one that started with the foundation of gratitude. And a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. A grateful heart is a magnet for miracles. So if gratitude is the first thing filtering down, then I know everything after that, I have a higher chance of manifesting, if that's what I'm using my journaling for. So journaling is one practice for all of these reasons. Breath work, another great practice to really just come back to you. Any practice that you're going to take on, my one kind of general key rule of thumb is let it be a practice that doesn't involve having to like do anything outside of you. Like it if it can be self-contained, the only exception to that is nature. Like if you're going to go be with the external, go be with nature, because nature is a reflection of nature within us. So you can go for a walk or something like that. But even like listening to podcasts, it's funny, we're on a podcast, right? Like to a certain degree, we can overdo that too because it's taking us out of ourselves. Like we're listening to other people. It's like, what if we could put that aside and actually just listen to our own thoughts for about 20 minutes and feel like how clear or not clear we are, and then writing it down in a journal or breathing, hearing the sound of our own breath, making art, like doing something that really just feels like you're doing it for you. You're not doing it for anyone else. It's literally you, yourself, and you, and it's helping you get in touch with yourself some way, shape, or form. And then you're also perhaps creating something out of it. That's like a bonus for a way that someone can make change, is just coming back to themselves, coming back to their heart through practices that really feel like it's for them. Yeah, that, because there's so many things that anyone could do, and we're all so unique that what works for me might not work for somebody else, and so I can't really say like do this. But if you know that what you're doing, like I shared, is really coming from like a place that it's really just you, yourself, and you, like let that happen, because our world is so hyper connected these days that you could pick up and do something with someone else, and it's great to share in that. But can you also just be with your own self and really enjoy your own company? That's the foundation of it, because that's when the company that you're enjoying within yourself is worth sharing with another, because you have something of value to share and offer. And you it's not like because you're with somebody you feel good about what you're doing. It's like, no, I feel good, and the fact that I can share it with someone just amplifies this even more. And so yeah, that's pretty much what I think people could do, is just get in touch with like themselves as much as they can.
Yeah, and that's this whole, podcast, back to the heart, is getting back to yourself. And, I think so many times we get confused about what that self-love or self-care means. And, we think it's certain activities, but it's really gets down to um, what are things that only you can do for you, that generate a feeling for you that no one else can do in a world where we're multitasking or delegating for other people to do certain things for us. Like the breath work, only you can do the breathing for you, right? You can't ask anybody else to do that. And the thoughts that are in your head, nobody else can take those out but you. Even outside and grounding, nobody else can go ground for you.
Mhm.
And the
Exactly.
feeling that you feel, nobody else can go and absorb the joy and the radiance of the sunshine and feel that. Nobody can do that for you but you.
Hmm.
So I love that so much. And that's definitely been a big part of my healing journey, is realizing what are those things that only I can do for me. Yoga or exercise, and the things that we're eating and putting into our bodies, everything is all connected, but we are the ones that get to make that choice of how we are going to love ourselves. And these things, that starting out with something small, and what is it that I can be grateful for? Because like I said, it's so easy to get overwhelmed. There's so many things happening. And if you can start your day, start with that routine of what can I be grateful for today? I think you have a journal that you guys have a
Yes.
journal that you can send out. So we'll put the show notes and include that. You have a journal prompt for people to access if they're interested in getting started with that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I forgot to mention it. Along with the breathwork audio, we have a journal guide um, that it's very similar to what I shared with you. It starts with the gratitude, and then it goes into the declarations. It goes into the manifestation. There's like a way that I we had learned to manifest that. It's like thanking in advance for something. So
Yes.
whatever you believe in, right? Like whatever again, it comes down to gratitude, really, right? It's like you're grateful now, but then it's like your future pacing for like, oh, thank you for like say your goals are financial and say you want a certain amount of money that you want to attract. It's like, well, thank you, source, higher power for assisting me with attaining this financial goal of yada 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 yada. Or for thank you for this opportunity that has allowed me to step into who I say I am even more and to share my light with the world. It's a form of future pacing your gratitude. It's like a prayer in a sense, but really it's just thanking in advance. So this template, I really love it because it's the different aspects of it are short, but doing the journal could take a bit of time depending on where you're at. Because, sometimes we wake up, we're like feeling a bit grumpy. We're not feeling like creators. We're feeling like victims and all that. So, like, to even sift through that to get put down into paper, like gratitude and creator energy, it takes a bit of a shift. And that's why breathwork is a great pair for that. Because if you feel like you're stuck and you're not able to get the words out, maybe what you need to do first is actually just breathe and clear through some of these like things that are blocked, like these emotions that are currently holding you back, clear it out. And then when you come back to the paper, I assure you it's going to be a lot easier to get those thoughts out because you're like at a whole different frequency of operating. So the audio and the journal are both designed to help with everything that we're talking about, like really getting back into your empowerment and getting back into your ability to make your choice and your decision and listen to what is your truth, like what is true for your heart, and create from there.
I love that. And that the journal prompts, I think people could use those even with their kids. I think that will be a great thing as kids are of the age where they can understand those things and are writing. Like what a cool activity for some people to do with their children to start
Mhm.
changing the mindset and the energy of kids at a younger age so we're not, in our adulthood and have as many things to figure out. Let's help them figure things out as their kids.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thought, actually. It's true. You can make that a conversation that you're having with your kids with that template. Yeah.
Yeah. So many times I remember as a kid or as, you see on a TV show, well, how was your day? How was school? And it's like, oh, well, Jessica got mad at me or whatever. So and so got in a fight. But how about talking about those feelings and starting that day, with those emotions and being what can you be grateful for? I think that's something beautiful that people could share with their kids too. So, yeah.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah. What a beautiful idea. I love that. I love it.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Harsha. This has been an amazing conversation. We covered so many things, connection and love and relationships and women's empowerment and everything in between. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Such an honor. Pleasure.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of Back to the Heart. If you are ready to awaken to a life filled with joy and purpose, subscribe now to Back to the Heart on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. And remember, we are all one. So let's do this together and rediscover the essence of what inspires us all. Back to the Heart.